So as I mentioned earlier, there's two Android concepts that I want to teach you before we move forward and make our Notes app. So the first one that I want to teach you about is menu. So this is a way to add some extra little options for our users, and they're kind of in their own menu place. You'll notice as soon as we build it in an app about where this is and how different apps use them. So let's go ahead and start a new project. I'm going to name mine just simply the menu demo. Nice plain vanilla title there. And we'll go ahead and hit next on this. We want this to be an empty activity, and we'll finish up there. Okay. So it's been a little bit interesting with Android Studio. In the past, it used to be that there always used to be apps that started with a menu. Now that is not the case. You can choose an activity to have it in there, but I'd rather just show you how to make an empty app and be able to add a menu in later than have you have to depend on a certain template when you start an app. If you know how to add it in, it's just going to make you that much better of an Android developer. So with that, the first thing that we need to do is we need to be able to go and get the particular menu that we want to create. So there's a couple of steps that have to happen here. So if we expand our app out here, we're going to go to our resources, and we're first going to create a new folder here. So let's go ahead and right click. We want to do new directory. There we go. And let's just simply call this menu, right, like that. Okay. Now once we go ahead and grab that, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to have this menu selected, and then we are going to say File, New, Menu Resource File right here. So go ahead and select that. Now for the name that you want to give this, you simply just, it doesn't matter immensely what this is, but let's just go ahead and call ours _main menu. This is our way of saying, yeah, this is going to be the one and only sort of main menu that we have. And the directory name, make sure this says menu, right? We're trying to put it in that folder there. So we'll go ahead and hit OK. And now once we've done that, you'll see we get an XML file, which this is very similar to like our activity _main XML, right? Where we can kind of set things up visually, see what they look like. But this is going to be for the menu item. And if we go ahead and click on this little menu directory here, we can see we've got that main _menu XML. That means we're in a good place. Now the next step for us is we've got to fill in this main menu with the appropriate information. So I find this easiest to do via text. So let's go ahead and go to the text view here. So in between these two menu tags, this is where we want to add what are called menu items. So these items, we got to give them a title, we got to give them an ID, and really that's it. So let's go ahead and create our first item. You'll see as we do that, we get some nice autocomplete help from Android Studio. So the name that we're looking for here is Android title. So we'll type out Android : title, and we got to set this to some string. So in this case, let's maybe call it like settings. All right, and we'll do a space. The next thing that we're looking for here is Android ID. So we'll scroll down there, that is. So then we've got to put some sort of ID in here, and I'm just going to call this maybe I'll see @+ID/ and I'm going to have this be equal to settings. Okay. So once we've gone ahead and got that in place, we can go ahead and do our ending, and that'll automatically add the backside of that item tag there. Okay. So just to see what this would look like, if we go back to our design view, look at that. We get this 3 little icon menu item here, and then whenever someone wants to check out one of the menu items, it's going to show up here like this. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to our text. If we want to add another menu item here, we just simply have to copy this and paste it down below, and we're going to change this from settings to help, and instead of the ID of settings, we'll call this one help. So now if we go back to our design view, right, someone can either check for more information about the settings, or they can set for help. And as you can imagine, you can put as many or as little of these as you would like. Okay. So with those in place, we've got to write a little bit of code here. So let's go back to our main activity. We're not going to touch this onCreate method, but what we're going to do is we're going to add a new method up top, and we're going to call, if we just start typing out onCreate options menu, that's what we're looking for. It's going to go do a ton of stuff for us. Basically, this is going to allow us to get the menu all set up. So what we're going to do first is get something called a menu inflator, and we're going to say capital menu inflator, lowercase menu inflator is equal to get menu inflator. Man, how many times are we going to say inflator? Then once we have this menu inflator, so we'll go ahead and type that out. Then we are going to say .inflate, and this is where we're going to give it access to our menu that we had just created. So we're going to say capital R dot, and then we want to get to menu. That gets us to our menu directory, and then we're going to say dot main menu. Okay, that's how it connects it there. And then the next thing that we need to pass this is this menu object right up top. So we'll just go ahead and pass that through. And so now with these things in place, let's go ahead and hit run. We want to see what this looks like on the emulator. So again, what we should see showing up here is the menu popping down. It's showing the settings, showing the help. And then I'm going to show you how you can go about making it so that when someone selects one of those, you can write some code to appropriately respond to that. So let's go ahead and get our emulator all set up here, and we'll just wait a moment here while this is getting all ready to rock and roll. And there we go. As soon as you mention the emulator taking a long time, that's as soon as the menu or emulator starts working. So let's hit the little ellipses here for the menu, and look at that. We get the settings, we get the help, just like we were looking for. And if you decide, user decides they don't want to pick something, they just tap out here. But then the next question for us is, you know, someone wants to select the settings or they select help, right? Like, we should have the ability to run some code, and let me show you how we can do that. So we're going to come back to our code that we have here, but we're going to create now a new method. And the method that we're going to create is called onOptions, and it's onOptions item selected. So this gets called when someone selects one of these items. So they give us a couple of things here. First, it's calling super.onItemSelections. We want to keep that. But we do, with this, want to return back a Boolean about true or false about whether we were able to successfully provide the user what they needed. So right now, it's calling to the super one. We want to leave this super call, but we want to do this return later. So I'm going to cut out the return, and I'm going to paste this down below, and we'll do our own return later. And again, we have to return a Boolean. So maybe for just the time being, we'll go ahead and return true to say, yeah, everything works out. Now, with this onOptions item selected, it passes us this menu item, and we can go ahead and check with this menu item and see what its ID is, and depending on the ID, we can do something with it. So this is a great situation to use a switch. You could also use if statements, but I think a switch is a little more elegant. So we're going to say switch parentheses and do our curly brackets like that. And the thing that we want to inspect is this item over here. So we're going to say item dot, and then we want to do get item ID. So this is going to provide us, for example, if we go back to our menu item, it's either going to give us like settings or help, right? And then we can move forward from there. So one of the cases would be, we're going to say case capital R dot ID dot settings, just like that. So after that, we're going to do a colon, make sure it's not a semicolon, and in which case then we'd want to log out some information. So maybe we'd say something like item selected, and then we'd specify here what menu item it was that was selected, and if this is the settings, we'll say settings. Okay, do our semicolon there. Once we have that in place, if we were able to successfully do that, we would want to return true here to say, yep, the user, we ran the code that we needed to, we returned true, and that then makes it so to make sure that no other code gets run. Another case that we would want to check for would be capital R.ID. In this case, we want the help. So we'll go ahead and do that. And we're essentially running the same code, right? Like we're going to just copy and paste this instead of settings. We'll say item selected. I guess we should put an extra selected. There we go. This one should say help if they selected that. Now, anytime that you have a switch statement, you have to have a default there to say, you know, in case it didn't equal anything from above. And in this situation, let's just go ahead and return false because that's saying, hey, something went wrong. We didn't run the code that we wanted to there. All right, so with all of this in place, that means we can now get rid of this return. And in fact, you can see Android Studio saying this thing's unreachable. You've already handled all the situations there. So let's just go ahead and get rid of that. And with this, this is everything that I wanted to teach you, but let's go ahead and test it out to make sure that this works. So we'll pull up our emulator here. We should also get logcat up and running so that you can see what gets logged whenever we select one of these items. So here comes the app, and we'll hit the menu, and let's select one of the items, maybe help. And look at that, item selected help. Now let's go ahead and do the same thing for when someone taps on settings, and look at that, item selected settings. Okay, so this is a quick little lecture. Wanted to just teach you this one concept very simply. Remember, the whole process for creating a menu item is you've got to create a menu directory, then one of these menu layouts. Once you do that, you've got to put in the correct items, and then these are the two main functions that you'll be working with. The onCreate option menus, this just makes sure that this shows this menu over here, and then the on option item selected says, okay, when someone clicks on one of these or taps on one of these, go ahead and run a code depending on which item it is that they selected. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and learn about dialog boxes, and then we'll move forward with making our app.